inside is a distant tune, the strangest home you've ever known.
You're watching The Road to Recovery with
Dr. Bart Andrews, a.k.a. DBA.
a.k.a. Barty Pants. Barty Pants. Barty Pants. Barty Pants. Okay, so DBA, would you tell us, just so we understand, what your exact role here is at BHR? What is your title? What is your role? What do you do?
Sure. So I'm the Vice President of Clinical Practice and Evaluation. So there's several elements that are involved in that. One is to make sure that the services that we're providing here, whether it's telephone, text, or chat, or mobile outreach, or telemedicine, that we're using the best evidence-based practices, right? That we're using the best clinical skills and techniques that we can, right? As part of that, I also oversee the Continuous Quality Improvement Program. Chris Sandwell, who is our CQI manager. So we're also making sure that, hey, are we checking to make sure that we're checking all the boxes and doing everything that we're supposed to be doing? If we're doing well in an area, let's acknowledge that. If there's an area we need to improve in, what areas do we need to improve in, right? And also, what's the data tell us about what we're doing? For instance, an interesting thing we just found, we do mobile outreach service. This is really cool that if a call or a text comes into our crisis line and they're in the St. Louis area, we can dispatch a mobile outreach team out to them. We have an hour benchmark, right? We have to respond within an hour, and we meet that. My boss, Pat Coleman, said, well, why an hour? What difference does an hour make? I'm like, well, that's a good question. So Chris and I pulled the data and ran over the data, and we found some things that are really interesting, right? We found that I thought that the quicker we responded, the less likely we were to escalate the case to the hospital or to the police, right? And I figured the longer it took to respond, the more likely we were to go to the hospital with somebody, right? It turns out that our clinicians are amazing at recognizing when someone really needs somebody very quickly, and so they triage and they prioritize mobile outreaches. So the outreaches with the shortest average response time had the highest percentage of, and it's still pretty low. It's still pretty low, like 15% of those cases will end up going to the hospital, right? Now, what's interesting is that it broke into two groups. Those outreaches where the clinicians felt it was most important to get that out there as soon as possible, those are really acute cases. And we just have a higher chance that those will end up going to the hospital because the person is really struggling, right? Now, what was interesting is the other group showed that this other group that we didn't think was as high a priority, and so we have a longer outreach response time to, with that group of outreaches, if we respond under an hour, our use of hospitalization is really low. If it takes us longer than an hour, it'll double the chance that we have to go to the hospital with somebody. So we learned that, in fact, that hour response time is really important. Yeah. That with people, the longer they're waiting, the more likely we have to use more aggressive measures, right? Have to go to the hospital. So we were able to show, Pat, yeah, the hour does make a difference. That, in fact, the sooner you can get out and help people, the more likely you are to be able to de-escalate and keep them from going to the hospital, which was really cool to see.
This has been The Road to Recovery with
DBA, a.k.a. Dr. Bart Andrews,
a.k.a. Barty Pants. Be well, find hope, so you can find healing, and off you go on the road to recovery. High five.